Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the October Community IT Innovators webinar. Thank you for joining us today for the What's New in Office 365 webinar. My name is Johan Hammerstrom. I'm the President and CEO of Community IT and the moderator for this series. I will also be one of the presenters of this webinar today, along with our Chief Technical Officer, Matthew Eshelman. Hello, Matt. How are you?
Doing well. Good to be here doing this webinar today.
Great. Yeah, and thank you for everyone who's joined us. This, based on registrations, is one of our most popular webinars for the year, so it should be good. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about our company. Community IT is a 100% employee-owned company. Our team of nearly 40 staff is dedicated to helping nonprofit organizations advance their missions through the effective use of technology. We're technology experts, and we have been consistently named one of the top 200 managed services providers, or MSPs, in North America, an honor that we received again in 2017. So today's webinar is going to focus on some of the newer and perhaps less well-known features in Office 365. Microsoft continues to innovate and release new features and apps at a rapid pace, and sometimes it's difficult to keep up with all of that innovation. So we thought that a basic overview of some of the applications that we find most interesting might be helpful. Today we'll be focusing on 6 new features in Office 365 that you may not be familiar with. We're going to look at Teams, Planner, Skype for Business, an application that up until today was called Find Time, and then today, as we were doing our final prep for the webinar, we discovered that Microsoft is renaming it to Pull for a Time to Meet, or something else. It seems like it's kind of in progress at the moment. Forms and Power BI. Before we look more closely at these features, we did want to provide an overview of Office 365 and also answer some of the questions that were posed during the registration process. So Office 365 is Microsoft's cloud-based productivity suite, and it was originally built to support the core set of productivity services provided by the Microsoft Office application, which has been around for over 20 years now. And it includes Word for editing documents, Microsoft Excel for editing spreadsheets, PowerPoint for presentations, and Outlook for email. Now, over time, Microsoft started making these applications available online with the ability to use them in a browser. For example, you can now edit Word documents in a browser online using the Word Online application. Microsoft has also built deeper integration into their desktop Office products and Office 365, and that started with Office 2013 and continued with Office 2016. In fact, the integration has become so good that to really get the full potential out of Office 2016, you need to be using it with Office 365. Finally, Microsoft has been adding a host of other applications and services beyond the traditional Office Suite Big Four of documents, spreadsheets, presentations, and email. Many of these services leverage the power of the cloud in new and exciting ways. Now, it's beyond the scope of today's presentation to get into the licensing details surrounding this ever-growing ecosystem of applications. Needless to say, because it's Microsoft, the licensing can get a little complicated at times. Some of what we will present today is included in the basic E1 offering, which is free for nonprofit organizations. Some of what we were going to present today can be purchased a la carte with E1. Some of it is included with E3 or E5, and some of it requires a separate license altogether. We're not going to get into those details today, but we'll try to note the licensing requirements of the different features that we look at. If there's demand for reviewing some of the general issues related to Office 365, we'll look into providing another webinar covering those topics in the new year. We have presented a number of Office 365 webinars over the last 18 months, and the slides and recordings for those webinars can all be found on our website. There are also a number of registration questions asking us to compare Office 365 with Google's offering, G Suite, which is a cloud-based productivity service formerly known as Google Apps. We've touched on this topic in previous webinars, and in our experience, for most small and medium-sized organizations, Office 365 is a better fit. Microsoft has been putting a considerable amount of focus and investment into improving Office 365 over the last 5 to 7 years, and Microsoft's success as a business really depends on its ability to sell software licenses to the business market. So it has an incentive to get this to work and work well for its customers. Google, on the other hand, has a core business that's revenue comes from advertising based on online search. And in our experience, they have not invested the same amount of time and energy into developing their G Suite as Microsoft has with Office 365. Now, just to be clear, there are certainly situations and organizations for which G Suite is a better option. It's especially true for schools. However, in our experience, we've never, to my knowledge, worked with a small or medium-sized nonprofit that went with Office 365 and later was looking to switch to Google. But we have worked with a number of organizations that started with Google and found it to be lacking for their business needs. The features and applications that we're going to talk about today, to my knowledge, have no real analog in the G Suite world, although some of them are obvious clones of third-party software like Slack that do integrate tightly with the G Suite. So, with that overview out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. When you first browse to Office 365, you can navigate to an app drawer, like this one, which shows you all of the apps that are present in your Office 365 install. Now you might notice, this comes from our app drawer, you might notice a number of third-party applications here, such as Bamboo, which is a popular HR program. And we at Community IT have used Azure AD Premium to provide a single sign-on solution for our staff. Single sign-on and identity management is something that we've discussed in an earlier webinar. And one of the advantages of single sign-on is the ability to see all of your organization's cloud-based applications in one place. So here we have, in addition to Excel and Word, which are clearly part of Office 365, other things like KnowBe4 and Bamboo, which are not.
Yep. And from a licensing perspective, the element that allows us to do this enterprise application integration is part of the what is now Microsoft is now calling the EM+S suite. So enterprise mobility and security, which is $1.65 per user per month at the nonprofit pricing. So again, that's Microsoft's single sign-on premium add-on.
Mm-hmm. Great. So you can get to all of these different Office 365 applications by going to this app screen. But if you're in Office 365 in OneDrive or in the Mail application, you can also get to them by navigating up to this little app drawer. That grid of 9 squares in the upper left-hand corner is an app drawer, sort of similar to the Start menu on the Windows operating system. And if you click on that, you'll see a drop-down that shows you all the different applications. And you have a couple different, options for navigating that. And if you go there, you'll find some of the applications that we're going to talk about today. So we'll start with Teams. Teams is a new application that's part of Office 365. And Matt, you want to tell us a little bit more about Teams?
Yeah, so Teams, as Jan mentioned, is one of the kind of newer additions into the Office 365 suite. It kind of just appeared. It just appeared for us in our Office 365 tenant about 2 weeks ago. It's been available, I think, in other beta tenants, for a little bit, for a few months before that. But it is really a new platform that Microsoft has provided, and I think what they are doing is trying to provide kind of a place or a system that actually ties together a lot of the other different applications under the Office 365 umbrella in a single user interface. And so we'll do a little bit of a demo here after a couple slides to kind of see what Teams actually looks like from an end user experience. So from Microsoft's perspective, they're really driving hard on this concept of, a collaboration hub, kind of recognizing that teams and, kind of dynamically grouped individuals are really how kind of the quote unquote modern workplace is functioning. And so they really view this as a hub for teamwork. So you've got kind of they're providing all these things in one user interface. So as they say here, it's built-in access to SharePoint, to OneNote, to Planner. You can work with documents right within the app. It includes audio and video calling right within the application. So it really is, I think, a single place to go to work. So that you're not kind of bouncing back and forth between a bunch of different windows. It kind of pulls everything together from a team-centric view of an individual's work. And the nice thing about Teams is that for better or for worse, it is really a user-centric collaboration tool. So individuals can create and manage teams themselves. It's not something that IT is required to kind of deliver and hand off to staff, and so it's something that users themselves can create. And it is a pretty robust system that has integrations to applications beyond just those that are included within Office 365. So it is very customizable and it has benefits of being able to have collaboration not only with internal members of the organization, so other user accounts in your Office 365 tenant, but it also has the ability to add external collaborators. So if you're working with partners or folks external to your organization, they can still have access and use features within the Teams platform without being a licensed user in your account.
Great. So Teams is, we'll do a demo here in a second to just show how Teams works. One of the Office 365 applications that's related to Teams is Planner, which you can also get to going through that drop-down menu. And Planner integrates with Teams, and I think you're going to demonstrate that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So let me hand this over to you.
Yeah, as we're doing the kind of the handoff, Planner is really Microsoft's kind of analog to a Kanban board, or kind of more commonly known as Trello is a good example of kind of a basic rudimentary kind of project management and coordination application. And so that is kind of Planner solves or fills that role within the Office 365 suite. So here we can see the overview of kind of the Planner of Teams as an application. So it is a separate desktop application. There's a web-based version, but this is a desktop installation. There's also apps available for your phone, iPad as well. So here we can see we've got a general group. So I have a team here. So across the left-hand side, we have activity. I have a chat feature, Teams, meetings. It's integrated with my Office, my Exchange Online calendar, and then a list of files that I've worked on recently. So here in the webinars group or webinars team, you can see by default, I've got some conversations. Gives me a place to store files, so I can kind of upload files within this location. This is actually backed in SharePoint. So if I click the open in SharePoint, it will actually take me into the location where this site lives in SharePoint. You see you can also add cloud storage. So if you wanted to add files that were from Dropbox or Box, ShareFile, Google Drive, those things can be integrated as well. So again, kind of gives you that single location to get to resources that are relevant to this team. They, by default, include a wiki tab if you wanted to have a wiki for documentation. I know that was a popular tool a couple of years ago. We have a wiki. It's actually being decommissioned, and so we've found that they're not actually that helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove the wiki tab because that's not relevant to this team anymore. And then I added notes field for OneNote. So here we have, just a demo tab. And Johan and I were taking some notes on this earlier, and so we can kind of both be in this document, making changes, taking notes, kind of all at the same time. And again, all of this is kind of embedded within the Teams application. You can also open these, in their native application as well if you wanted some additional features or wanted to look at some other things. The other nice thing is that you can add on additional tabs. So here we can see, we can add on additional tabs for various other services that are within, kind of the Office 365 umbrella. So here we'll go ahead and add Planner. And so, Planner is a way for us to stay organized, to do task assignment. You can either create a new plan or use an existing one. So I'm going to go ahead and use the existing plan that I set up for our webinars. And I'll go ahead and add this as a tab. And so what this is going to do is now pull in the planner that is associated with that I created. So here you can see it's a fairly straightforward Kanban board where we've got columns across the top with subject matter. So we got webinar tasks, what's on deck, some feature ideas, and a parking lot. And then you can go and just move things around. You see, hey, we got some future ideas. We're going to talk about N10, 2018. Had a great idea for Office 365 in a quarter that we're going to do in the leap year. I think that's a really great idea. But we should spend in the parking. Also see that we've got, you can assign some dates. So here we have get registration info, and I see that is assigned to Carolyn, who manages our webinar registration process. So she can go in here and say that manage it if it's in progress, if it's completed, when she's starting it, adding attachments, kind of doing all of that, all within within this window. So again, you can see how as a team, kind of a team-centric view, all of this is available. So we kind of go back into the conversation board, and here again, we can see that this conversation history is persistent, and so it's available. If somebody new joins a team, they'll have access to the entire conversation history, so they can kind of get up to speed with what all is happening. And here, if Johan joins, you can see that, hey, I added this planner tab. So if I wanted to let him know, I can say, I can just add Johan. Check out the new plan for. And so he'll get a notification on his side that he's been mentioned in a conversation, then can respond to it whenever whenever he has time. So again, I think this this is new, and as I said, we've only had it available in our tenant for a few weeks, but I can certainly see the potential and the possibility for using this as a collaboration tool and as a place where we can work on various initiatives or projects within a single location, have a collaboration platform that allows us to work with external partners, all within kind of a self-contained environment, all within kind of under this Office 365 umbrella.
Great, thank you, Matt. All right, I'm gonna take back the. Okay. All right, so that's Planner and Teams. So the next one we want to discuss is Skype for Business. Many of you probably are actually aware of Skype for Business. It used to be known as Lync, L-Y-N-C, and then after Microsoft purchased Skype, the consumer product, they eventually rebranded Lync as Skype for Business, which I think the plan was to make it more friendly and approachable for office workers, and I think it ended up just confusing people. Okay, am I supposed to use the Skype icon with the blue background and the white lettering, or the white black background and the blue lettering? But we've used Skype extensively, and I think a lot of the confusion has settled out, and people are more used to how Skype works. One of the things that we wanted to mention is that Skype for Business actually runs directly in the browser, so you don't need to install it necessarily on your computer to use Skype for Business. So if you were to search for Skype in the app drawer, as I'm doing here, you're not going to find it. It's not going to show up. To get to Skype, you have to go to Mail. So if you click on Mail and then look in the upper right-hand side of the screen, there's a little Skype icon up there. And if you click on that, it's going to bring open your contact list, and you can also start chats there. And actually, if people chat you while you have Mail open in your browser, you're going to get notifications up there in that little Skype icon. And so it really, Microsoft continues to build out desktop-like functionality in the web browser.
Yeah, the other thing that Skype or Office 365 has added in recently is what they call PSTN conferencing. So up until a few months ago, if you wanted to use Skype to have a meeting with somebody outside your organization, it was a little bit cumbersome because they had to download kind of a Skype add-in or kind of jump through some hoops, have a computer with a headset, and so it did have a little, kind of a higher barrier to entry if you wanted to have a meeting with somebody outside your organization using kind of Skype on your computer. So they've recently added in the ability to do PSTN conferencing, which essentially is the fancy term for letting you have a dial-in conference number in your Skype meeting invitation. So now, for example, whenever I send a meeting invitation for Skype for Business, it includes a link to log in, from your computer if somebody has Skype already, or they can just dial in if they, want to make a call, or if they're away from their computer. So again, it's kind of a nice add-in feature that's available that can help kind of consolidate the number of different web and conferencing applications that organizations have to manage and subscribe to.
All right, so let's say you want to. So you're going to use Skype to set up a meeting with someone outside your organization, or even if you work in a large organization and you have a lot of people in your organization. Microsoft's solution up till now has been to use the free busy data. So when you go to schedule the appointment, you see who's free, who's available, and you can pick a time that way. But that's not always possible, and if you have a lot of people on your meeting, or if you're inviting people that you don't have access to their calendar or visibility into their availability, Microsoft added this new feature, previously known as Find Time, which they're now calling Poll for a Time to Meet. And this is kind of I won't say it's a killer app, but we've been using it a lot to schedule meetings with our customers. And I think it's really made our lives a lot easier. And I think it's something that's also appreciated by our customers as well in being able to find the best time for a larger group of people to meet. So you want to walk us through how this works, Matt?
Yeah, so Microsoft has kind of updated this capacity. So they give you the ability to kind of create this time to meet. Let's see, do we have the intermediary slides there?
Oh, is this it?
There we go.
Sorry.
So again, and this feature, this functionality currently, at least as of today, is kind of delivered through the web browser. So it will likely get back into Outlook soon, but for right now, it's available in the web browser. So if you go from that first slide, go into your calendar, send a poll for a time to meet, then you get this meeting invite window where you can add the title, add the location, and then you can see there that it says meeting options, add at least 2 different times for attendees to vote on. So you can add those times. You can add your Skype meeting, and then the nice thing is if you're scheduling with people within your organization, you'll see their free busy pop up. So you can have a head start on scheduling those meetings because you'll know when your internal staff are available. And then if you're collaborating with people outside of your organization, you can include a couple of times in there as well. So here, we have a meeting where I want to discuss the recommendations. It's going to be an online meeting. That means it's a Skype meeting. I've got a couple of times here. And whenever I hit send, we'll see what it looks like whenever it's received by somebody from outside the organization. So this is actually what it looks like in my Gmail account. So you can see that I sent from me to me. So we've got discuss recommendations, I can choose a couple of times. So when I click on the choose times button here, then it goes into another web browser, and I can just check the box that works for me. So again, you can see the attendees in the meeting, and as the meeting organizer, what will happen is it will automatically schedule the meeting that is preferred by all people, and if not, it'll give you some options to say, oh well, this meeting was preferred, time was preferred by 6 out of 7 attendees, or however it works out. But again, as Johan mentioned, it's a really handy tool that kind of keeps you in one application. You don't have to have like a separate doodle poll or these kind of other services that have sprung up to manage meeting collaboration with a lot of different external parties. So again, it's a find time poll for time to meet.
Yeah, and that's something that anyone who's using Office 365 today, you can just go to the website and pick the go ahead and go to your calendar and try to schedule a meeting using your calendar through the web browser, and you'll see the option there, just like it's listed here. Poll for a time to meet. So that's something you can experiment with maybe in your organization and get some comfort with and start using with attendees outside of your organization.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, Matt. I mean, I think that's a good, Microsoft is building this functionality in so that in a business environment, you don't need to use Doodle or some of the other, consumer solutions to try to find times for people to meet. In the same vein, let's move on to the next application. It's called Forms. And I think Google Forms obviously is something that I think probably almost everybody on the webinar has used at one point or another. And Google Forms has pretty rich functionality, and it can be used to gather a lot of information from a large group of people. I know that we internally use SurveyMonkey for various staff surveys that we like to send out to people. And I think Forms is if you're not doing really complex surveying or data gathering, Forms is a great substitute, and I'll demo it in just a minute. And then I'm also going to demo Power BI. So let me talk a little bit about Power BI first, what it is, and then I'll do a demo of Forms and then a demo of Power BI. So the BI in Power BI obviously stands for business intelligence. And Power BI is a data visualization tool, and it can be used to analyze data and also create interactive web-based reports. And I know a growing number of nonprofit organizations are embedding Power BI generated reports on their website to present a lot of their data, to present all different kinds of data. Power BI is a very sophisticated tool, and if any of you are familiar with Excel pivot tables, it sort of takes pivot tables to the next level. And you don't need to have an extensive background in data analysis to use Power BI effectively, but some familiarity with data manipulation would probably be handy when you're trying to learn and use Power BI. It's essentially a competitor for Tableau, which is a third-party solution for data visualization. And Power BI Pro. So Power BI, there's sort of a basic level of Power BI that you can use within the browser. There's a more advanced sharing and desktop components to Power BI that are included in Power BI Pro, and that requires a separate license. But you can purchase that on a per person basis. So if you work, if you're in a 50, 60 person organization and you have E1 or E3 for most of your staff, if you have a data department that you would like to give Power BI functionality to, you can just purchase a few licenses for those staff. So let me go ahead and switch over here. So, and here's my, you can see my reply from Matt in my Teams website. So if I go to Forms there's two different types of forms you can create. You can create just a regular new form. You can also create a quiz. And so if you go to create a new form, just click here, and it brings up a an interactive screen where you can pick different kinds of data that you want to collect. You can collect a text question, how was the webinar? And you can switch to long answer, short answer, and you can add the next question, multiple choice. Did you like it a lot? A little? As you can tell, I'm not a professional surveyor, not at all. So this is pretty helpful. It's obviously not going to be as sophisticated as some of the things you can do with SurveyMonkey or Google Forms, but for basic surveys that you want to send out within your organization or outside the organization, it can be pretty handy. So you can copy the link, and you can manage it. You can preview it here. It shows you what it looks like. It's actually pretty. I actually like the simplicity of it. I sometimes get a little bit overwhelmed by Google Forms. It just is a lot if I'm only trying to collect a small amount of data. So speaking of a lot of data, let's switch gears here a little bit and talk about Power BI. So I have downloaded some sample data. So this financial sample of data just contains, sales data for different products, cars basically sold in different countries around the world. And I'm going to import this data into Power BI. I already imported it here. Let me do that again just to show you what it looks like. So the Power BI desktop app is something that you can download from the Office 365 website, install it in Windows, and it's pretty straightforward application. So when it loads, you start by entering your data into the solution. So here, it comes with a lot of videos. So the first time you install the Power BI desktop application and you launch it for the first time, you're going to see a lot of videos here. There are tutorials, and there's actually pretty good Power BI community get answers to a lot of questions on. So I've got a blank presentation, or a blank desktop, as they call it here. And the first thing I want to do is gather my data and pull it into the Power BI. So go up here to Get Data, and you'll see that there are a lot of different places you can pull your data from. So they list the most common here. I'm just going to show you all of the different sources you can get your data from. So you can pull it from files, Excel spreadsheets, text files, JSON files. You can connect directly to databases, and it supports a wide variety of database connections from SQL Server to MySQL. You can pull it directly from Azure. So if you have an Azure SQL database or warehouse, you can pull it there. You can connect directly to Azure Blob storage. You can also connect to other online services. So I actually have it connected. I've got another visualization set up that connects to our Google Analytics, and I found that very helpful. I don't have to log into the Google Analytics interface. I can create the reports I need here in Power BI and refresh the data, and it automatically pulls it. You can connect to Facebook, MailChimp, it's not you name it, but there is a growing number of third-party integrations that Microsoft supports. So in this case, what I want to connect with is Excel. It connects the data, and I can basically go over here and pick the type of chart that I want to look at. So you recall that this data includes different segments, different countries, number of units sold, price of units. It's basically a sales chart. So if I wanted to look at number of units sold per country, I might be interested in seeing a bar graph. So I'd click there for my bar graph. I want to see the sales based on the product. So I'd pull that over here, and now the different products show up, and then we pull the sales data here into the value. And now I can see the different kinds of products. I can slice that data a little bit more. Let's say I wanted to instead look at how these different products were selling in different countries. I could pull the country data here and move the product data down to the legend. And it's interactive, so as I hover, I can see, the different products and their different sales quantities in the different, categories. So that's pretty cool. It's there's a ton of different visualizations over here. Let me just quickly demo the matrix. So I got the matrix here. Let's say I wanted to just see, based on country, the number of sales. Whoops. There we go. And it shows the data here. And obviously I can manipulate that data in a lot of different ways. Now, this report is interactive, and so I can add a slicer onto the report. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Easily removed. Put that over there, and I can slice based on the date. And so now what I'm seeing here is the data from 2013 to 2014. But let's say I wanted to look at just the data from 2013. I could slide that over here, and now it dynamically adjusts what you're seeing based on that date range. Or let's say I just wanted to look at 2014. I could come here and pick the date there. And now it dynamically adjusts the data. Let's say I wanted to slice it on some other type of value. Oops, here we go. I want to slice it based on segment. So I just want to see the number of vehicles that were sold in the mid-market. If I click here, now it just shows me the mid-market data for that date range. So the possibilities, I don't want to say they're endless, but it's pretty impressive, sort of the interactive reports you can create. Also, you can, because we have geographic data here, if you look at that map right there, the filled map, I did this earlier. I put in a map of the world with the data from the different countries. And now you can see, I can hover over the different countries and I can see the data, the total sales from each country. So it's pretty impressive.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty neat, and the rate of innovation right now with Power BI is also pretty impressive. They continue to add new features, and there's a lot of things that it wasn't able to do a year ago that it can do now. So part of what makes Power BI so useful is the fact that you can publish these reports to the web. And so I can take my, data here. I'm going to go ahead and try to do this live, and I can publish it to the Power BI section of my Office 365. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And these are my workspaces in Office 365. I'm going to pick my workspace, and it's publishing it right now. And all right. So now if I go to the website, then let me refresh this. And I go to reports, and you can see there's the webinar demo report. So it takes basically that entire report that I created and makes it available through the browser. You can see here I'm in the browser in Office 365. All those visualizations that I created on the desktop app are now available in the browser with all the full sort of interactivity That's a strange trailing decimal. Not sure why that's there. You can also come in here and actually edit the report. So if I click here, I can edit it and I can add new visualizations. I can make changes to these reports if I want to change the way it looks. I can do that and save it. Now this saves it, it's a separate copy that's on the website as opposed to, it's not going to save back down to my desktop to where I was working on the desktop app. And then I can take any one of these and turn them into, let's see, and then I'll go back to reading view, and now I can go here and let's see, there we go. So it's this is just a taste of all the things you can do. Oh, the interactivity that I had built into this, the slicing and everything, that persists in the web. You know, this is just a view. I'm in reading view right now. Oh no, I'm not. Let me save the changes to the report. Okay, now I'm in reading view. I still have the interactive approach with the report that I had before. So if I believe if you have Office 365, you should have the ability to access Power BI, and the sample data that I was using, I downloaded from Microsoft's site, so you can get it there. But you can also, they have sample data built in, and you may have seen earlier this IT spend analysis sample. This is something, this kind of, it was a bit much. I loaded this sample data and it kind of overwhelmed me a little bit. But you can get the data. If you click down here in the corner and say get data, there's an option here for samples. There's a partner showcase, but if you go to samples, you can see there's a variety of different types of samples that you can load so that you can start playing around with sample data if you want to, have a better, if you want to just kind of get a taste of what Power BI can do. So it's impressive, I'll admit. I've used it to analyze some of our company financial data, some of our customer service performance data. I feel like I've only scratched the surface of what Power BI can do, but once I got the reports set up, it saved me a ton of time and made it a lot easier to. It was much faster than using Excel spreadsheets. So, all right, that's our demo. So before we go on to questions, I just want to promote next month's webinar. So this will be our last webinar of 2017. We always take December off, and we're proud to be co-presenting, or actually Build will be doing all the presenting, but our information strategy partner, Build Consulting, is going to be providing us with a real-life story of one of their clients and how they improved their donor data. So that's going to be November 15th from 4 to 5 o'clock. The third Wednesday of every month. So we hope you can join us for that. So thank you for joining us today, and we have a little bit of time here for questions. So let me see what we got. So which would be preferred between forms and poll everywhere? And I think that refers to the poll to find the time. So the forms would be useful if you want to gather data from your staff, kind of irrespective of a meet. Basically, the poll is used for finding a time to meet, and it's integrated with your calendar. And so when you send out one of those polls with a time to meet, based on the responses that people provide, it will automatically create the calendar appointments for you. It'll automatically delete the other calendar. It basically blocks out the time in people's calendars, based on the options with tentative appointments. And then when an appointment is selected by the organizer, those are deleted and the actual appointment time is marked as busy. So it does a lot of that sort of thing automated behind the scenes. So polls should be used in that setting, and then forms would be used for any other kind of data gathering or collection that you would like. Unfortunately, there's no Mac version for Power BI. It works only in Windows, and you can, if you get your visualizations set up in Windows, you can edit them in the browser on a Mac. And I basically use Chrome as my browser on Windows and on my Mac, and it works just fine with every Office 365 application. But there are some things that you can't do in the browser that you really need the desktop for, and I find that in general the desktop's a little bit easier to create the initial visualizations in. Does Power BI link to the data source? Yes, it does. Great question. So Power BI links to the data source. And in fact, this was kind of a straightforward example that I shared where I had an Excel spreadsheet that I had downloaded onto my desktop, and I uploaded that. But once you do the initial upload, if you store that Excel spreadsheet in SharePoint or in your OneDrive, you can actually connect the data directly to the web-based location of that SharePoint, where the Excel file is stored in SharePoint. And let me go back and demonstrate this. So if I come back here to my workspace, here's my data sets. So you see this IT spend analysis sample. If I click here on refresh, so basically, I apologize if I'm making this overly complicated. So basically, if I save this spreadsheet in my OneDrive, I can update the link in Power BI so that instead of connecting to my desktop, it connects directly to OneDrive. Then when I publish that to the web, it's now connected directly through the internet to the OneDrive location. And if I click here on refresh now, any changes that I make to this spreadsheet in where it's stored in OneDrive will automatically get loaded into the visualization. So I hope that answered your question. If not, please text in another question. I'm happy to elaborate on it. All right. Can you, Matt, maybe you could help with this one. Can you invite non-Microsoft accounts to Teams?
Yeah, you can. I think they need to have their account enabled for Microsoft Live as kind of a ID session authentication, but they don't have to be another Office 365 account. So, so you can, as long as that account is enabled as a Microsoft Live ID, they should be able to log in and access it. So again, just like you can have a Google ID that isn't a Gmail account, you can have a Microsoft Live ID that isn't a Microsoft account.
Great. Any experience, Matt, have we ever tried Skype meeting broadcast? I know the Microsoft CEO, Satya Nadella, swore by it at one point, but is that something you've ever experimented with?
We haven't used it on a regular basis. I mean, I think partially because we've been using GoToWebinar for such a long time. We have that level of familiarity with it. That being said, Microsoft runs all of their Microsoft partner call-ins off of Skype for Meeting broadcast, and I think it works. It has worked pretty well. So again, I think it could be an option. If you're looking to consolidate the number of web collaboration tools that you're using, I think it's gotten a lot better, and now they have the ability to host kind of thousands of meetings, to have call-ins, and to have some of those features and functionality that previously were only available in the tools like GoToMeeting or ReadyTalk or some of those other kind of purpose-built conferencing tools.
Great. Do you know, Matt, in the I haven't used find time / pull for a meeting time, pull for a time to meet extensively enough. Can you turn off some of the automation features, like the automatically creating tentative appointments and automatically creating the meeting?
Um, I I am not sure because as I've had it work, basically all the times that you as the meeting initiator suggest kind of show up in your calendar as tentative, and it only gets finalized once the everybody's kind of voted on the time, or you've actually finalized the meeting time, and at that point it should actually kind of pull all those times. So I'm not sure if there's a way to say only schedule it when it's confirmed. Yeah, it's a good question. I think they do it so you don't kind of inadvertently double book yourself if you're scheduling those kinds of meetings.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it kind of annoyed me at first, and then I grew to love it, which maybe describes most Microsoft products. um, it is like something great. Well, thank you very much, Matt, and thank you for everyone else joining us today. I hope you found this webinar helpful, and we will be publishing the slides and the recording to our website in the next few days, and we encourage you to join us next month for a real-life story on improving donor data. Have a great afternoon. Take care.
Okay, thank you.